Hello, and welcome to another reading of Star Trek Destiny of Gods of Night, where we are going to be starting Chapter 2. So now we are in the year 2156. Sensor contacts bearing 181 Mark 7. Captain Erica Hernandez snapped her attention from a line of ships on the main viewer to her alarmed senior tactical officer, Lieutenant Kiana Thyler. Polarize the hull plating, Hernandez ordered. She was taking no chances. The Columbia was a long way from home, escorting a mining convoy home from the Onena sector, which was the site of a hotly contested intersection of the Romulan Star Empire, the Klingon Empire, and the farthest extremity of Earth explored space. A single whoop of the alert klaxon sounded throughout the ship as Hernandez rose from her chair. She took a single step forward towards the helmsman, Lieutenant Reiko Akagi. Bring us about, Hernandez said. Intercept course. She glanced left at her senior communications officer, Sidra Valerian. Hail the convoy! Tell them to take evasive action. Thayer looked up from the console. We can't get a lock on the enemy vessels, Captain. They're jamming our sensors. I, I can't raise the convoy, Valerian, who turned her desperate stare towards the ships on the view screen, actually sharpened her Scottish accent. Ship to ship comms are blocked. Lieutenant Khalil El Rashad, the ship's second officer and science expert, intensified his efforts at his own console. I'll try to help break through it, he said. Tactical alert, Hernandez said. She returned to her seat as the turbo lift door opened and her first officer, Commander Veronica Fletcher, stepped out to the bridge. The blonde New Zealander nodded to Hernandez as she walked past and looked over at the unoccupied engineering console directly to Hernandez's right. Tactical, Hernandez said. Report. Signal clearing. Tyler report. 6 ships closing at high warp. She looked over her shoulder at the captain. Romulans. Valerine made a fine adjustment to her panel's console as she said, breaking the scrambling code, Captain. We intercepted one of the ship to ship transmissions. Fear overcame the young woman's training, and her voice wavered as she informed the bridge. All vessels are being ordered to target us first. Arm phase cannons. Load torpedoes, Hernandez said. Number 1, tell Major Foyle and his Bacos to lock and load. Helm, all head full. Tactical. Target the lead Romulan. Catastrophic. Deceleration. Hurled horrendous at the deck. Pinned her officers to their consoles and wrecked the ship with a groaning crash. Consoles dimmed and the overhead lights went dark. The throbbing of the engines became a low, falling moan. On the main view screen, the long poles of starlight resolved to a slowly turning star field and indicate the ship had dropped out of warp and was drifting at sublight. Report! Hernandez shouted as she picked herself up off the deck. Command systems aren't responding, Captain, Fletcher said, making futile jabs at her console. Valerian, Hernandez said, patch in the emergency line to engineering. Put it on speakers. A few seconds later, Valerian replied, channel open. Bridge to engineering, Hernandez said, report. After a few moments of sputtering static on the line, Lieutenant Carl Greylock, an Australian-born chief engineer, responded, minor damage down here, Captain. Main power still online, but I don't have any working controls. Hernandez sharpened the edge of her voice and the massacre deepening concern. What hit us, Carl? Nothing from outside, Greylock said. The last set of readings I saw before we went dark Looked like a cascade failure starting in the communication systems. Fletcher cut in. The intercepted message, Captain. It could have been a Trojan horse, a way to slip a computer virus past our defenses. If it was, Renan says, how long to fix it? We'll have to shut down the whole ship, Greylock said. Power up the main computer with a portable generator, wipe its command protocols, and restore from the protected backup. I didn't ask for a checklist, Carl. I asked how long. It's just a gruntled sigh carried clearly over the comm. 3, maybe 4 hours if we. The overhead lights snapped back to full brightness, and every console on the bridge surged back to life. The thrumming of the impulse engines resounded through the bulkheads and deck plates. The bridge officers all checked their consoles. Fletcher looked more confused than she had before. We have full power, Captain, but still no command inputs. Turning in a circle, Hernandez asked, is anybody's console responding? The officers all shook their heads in dismay. Then a resonant pulsing of the engines returned, and the starscape on the main viewer stretched into a tunnel of drifting streaks. Engineering! Captain Hernandez says, what's going on? No idea, sir, Greylock shouted back, sounding profoundly disturbed by the situation. Speed increasing. Warp 3, warp 4, warp 5, Captain. There recoiled from the council if it had demonically possessed, as if it were demonically possessed. Torpedo launchers powering up, sir. Staring at the horror of the panel, she added, we're targeting the convoy. Carl, shut down the main power, Hernandez shouted. Hurry! From the helm, Akagi called out. We're on an intercept course for the convoy, Captain. Hernandez sensed what was happening, felt like a cold twist in her gut. It was unfolding so quickly that she felt as if she were drugged, too slow to do anything to stop it. Thayer had pressed against the bulkheads behind her console, mute with shock. Fletcher scrambled over from the engineering station to monitor the tactical console. Her voice trembled with dismay. Weapons locked, Captain. Cut off from the ship's command system, Hernandez did, didn't have the option of overloading the Columbia's warp reactor. Not that it would have changed the outcome of this one sided slaughter. It would have denied the Romulans the pleasure of using her ship as their weapon. But then there would be nothing to stop them from destroying the convoy anyway. This this was the Romulans' way of rubbing salt in the wound of Columbia's defeat. The insult added to the injury. Butcher's voice was flat and motionless. We're firing. The shrieks of electrically magnetically propelled torpedoes, leaving the ships reverberated in the deathly silence of the bridge. On the main view screen, images of the defenseless civilian vessels in the convoy were replaced with the spreading red orange fire blossoms of antimatter fueled explosions. In less than 10 seconds, the entire convoy was destroyed, reduced to a cloud of sparking debris and superheated gases. Then the lights flickered again and went dark, followed by the bridge consoles. The ship became so quiet as a grave. Hernandez choked back the urge to vomit. Anger and adrenaline left her shaking with impotent fury. Hundreds of men and women had been lost in the convoy. The last thing they had known before they died was that it was the Columbia that killed them. I don't I don't get it, Brett Valerian murmured. We were disabled. The Romulans couldn't destroy the convoy. Why use us to do it? Because it could. Because it could, Sidra, Fletcher said to the Valerian. This is a trial run for how they'll attack the rest of the fleet. We're just the guinea pigs. Greylock's voice crackled over the intership emergency comm. Engineering to bridge. Go ahead, Hernandez said. Captain, I think we've got a shot at getting out of this with our skins, but it'll be tight. Hernandez forced herself into a semblance of composure. and looked around at the rest of the bridge crew. Stations. Everyone stepped quickly and quietly to their consoles. She returned to her chair. What's your plan, Carl? When the Romulans powered us up for the attack on the convoy, they left a residual charge in the warp nacelles. We could trigger a manual release and make a half-second warp jump. Alrashid sounded dubious. I think they'll notice that. I got Biggs and Pierce venting plasma through the impulse manifold, and the Makos are pushing a photonic warhead out the launch bay. If we detonate the warhead and trigger the jump at exactly the same moment, we should look like we self destructed. If anyone has a better plan, Hernandez announced, let's hear it. Silence reigned. Make it fast. Make it fast, Carl. It won't be long before the explosions hammered the Columbia. The deck pitched wildly as sparks fountained from behind bridge panels. A loud tang of smoke from burnt wiring filled the air. Within seconds, the only light on the bridge came from the irregular flashes of EPS power displays bursting into flames and showering the crew with the stinging motes of shattered glass. Then the bone jarring concussion launched Hernandez up the backwards through the shadows. She hit the aft bulkhead like dead weight and felt as if her conscience had been knocked free of her body, sinking into a different, deeper kind of darkness. She could only hope that the last explosion she heard was the one meant to save the Columbia and not the one to destroy it, sent to destroy it. Alrighty, so that was chapter 2 there. We're getting introduced to the Columbia's crew now. A lot of names that we didn't we don't know. It sounds like that it's a lot of like Arab and Hispanic names, but there's also aliens there. So we're learning about the beginning of the long trek that the Columbia has had there. The start of it. This is 2156 was before the Romulan War, but it could be one of the factors that leads to the Romulan War. I think this is after the this is before the Romulan War, but after the Zindi incident or whatever. I don't even know what they want to call that. That there, it wasn't a war, but it wasn't a skirmish. It wasn't. I guess they could call it an incident. But I think this is just that this is just like one of the factors there, and I think that this is like beginning to get the clue because we know that the Columbia is damaged. She got hacked, and they're gonna make one last attempt. They're gonna kind of do like a Wrecker maneuver, only they're gonna simulate like they got like they're yeah, actually it'd be like the Wrecker maneuver in the one episode they're doing the tactical moves. Come to think about it, so that should have been called the Wrecker maneuver. It should be called the If she pulls it off, it'd be the Hernandez maneuver. But I suppose it doesn't have the same ring to it. But so anyhow, we're just getting introductions. Pretty much getting the introduction. So we've met the Aventine crew. We got the setup for seeing that the something happened that the Columbia is 75,000 light years away from Federation space, all on the other side of the Gamma Quadrant. There, there, and we know that they're going to be doing something here. That they're going to make a half-second warp jump. Now, what's that going to lead to? I guess you'll just have to stay tuned for